Sri Sai Satcharitra Chapter 7. Wonderful Incarnation, Behavior of Sai Baba, His Yogic Practices, His All-Pervasiveness and Mercy, Leper Devotees Service, Master Khapade's Plague Case, Going to Pandharpur. Wonderful Incarnation, Sai Baba knew all yogic practices. He was well versed in the six processes, including dhauti, stomach cleaning by a moistened piece of cloth, linen, 3 in breadth and 22.5 in length. Khanda Yoga, which is separating his limbs and joining them again, and Samadhi. If you thought that he was a Hindu, he looked like a Yavan. If you thought him to be a Yavan, he looked like a pious Hindu. No one definitely knew whether he was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. He celebrated the Hindu festivals like Ram Navami with all due formalities and at the same time permitted the sandal procession of the Mohammedans. He encouraged wrestling bows in the festival, and when the Gokulashtami came, he got the Gopalakala ceremony duly performed. And on Eid festivals, he allowed the Mohammedans to say their prayers, namaz, in the masjid. Once during a Muharram festival, some Mohammedans proposed to construct a tazia or tabut in the masjid, keep it there for some days, and afterwards take it in a procession through the village. Sai Baba allowed the keeping of the tabut for 4 days, and on the fifth day, he got it removed from the masjid without the least compensation. If we say that he was a Mohammedan, his ears were pierced, had holes according to the Hindu custom. If you think that he was a Hindu, he advocated the practice of circumcision, though, according to Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who observed him closely, he was not himself circumcised. This was written in the Sai Leela magazine on Baba Hindu Ki Yavan, in an article which was written by Mr. B.V. Dev, page 562. If you call him Hindu, he always lived in the masjid. If Mohammedan, he had always the dhuni, the sacred fire there, and the following things, which are contrary to the Mohammedan religion: grinding of the handmill, blowing of the conch and bells, oblation in the fire, bhajan, giving of food and worship of Baba's feet by the means of aragya, water, were allowed there. If you think that he was a Mohammedan, the best of the Brahmins and Agnihotris, leaving aside their orthodox ways, fell and prostrate at his feet. Those who went to make inquiries about his caste were dumbfounded and were captured by the darshan. So none could definitely decide whether Sai Baba was a Hindu or a Mohammedan. This is no wonder, for he who completely surrenders himself to the Lord by getting rid of his egoism and body consciousness thus becomes one with him and has nothing to do with the question of caste or nationality. Baba saw no difference between any two castes and even between beings. He took meat and fish with fakirs but did not grumble when dogs touched the dishes with their mouths. Such a unique and wonderful incarnation was Sai Baba. On the account of the merits in my past birth, I had the good fortune to sit at his feet and enjoy his blessed company. The joy and delight I derived therefrom was incomparable. In fact, Sai Baba was pure Anand and consciousness. I cannot sufficiently describe his greatness and uniqueness. He who took delight at his feet was established in his own self. Many sannyasis, sadhaks, and all sorts of men aspiring for salvation came to Sai Baba. He always walked, talked, and laughed with them, and always uttered, Allah Malik, God is the sole owner. He never liked discussion or disputation. He was always calm and controlled, though irritable at times, always preached Vedanta, and nobody knew till the last who was Baba. Princes and poor were treated alike by him. He knew the inmost secrets of all, and when he gave expression to them, all were surprised. He was the repository of knowledge, still he finged ignorance. He also disliked honor. Such were the characteristics of Sai Baba. Though he had a human body, his deeds testified to his godhood. All people considered him as God in Shirdi. Behavior of Sai Baba. Ignorant that I cannot describe Baba's miracles. He got almost all the temples in Shirdi repaired. Through Tatya Patil, the temple of Shani, Ganpati, Shankar Parvati, village deity, and Maruti were put in order. His charity was also remarkable. The money he used to collect as dakshina was freely distributed, rupees 20 to some, 15 to other, 50 to others every day. The recipients thought that this was the money of charity, and Baba wished that it should be usefully employed. People benefited immensely by Baba's darshan. Some became hale and hearty, wicked people were turned into good ones. Leprosy was cured in some cases. Many got their desires fulfilled without any medicine. Being put in the eyes, some blind men got back their sight, and some lame men got their limbs. Nobody could see the end of the extraordinary greatness of Baba. His fame spread far wide, and it was spreaded all over, and the pilgrims from all the sides flocked to Shirdi. Baba had his asana near the dhuni and always rested there. He sat there in meditation, sometimes without a bath. He used to tie a small white turban on his head and wear a clean dhotar round his waist and a shirt on his body. This was his attire in the beginning. He first practiced medicine in the village. He examined patients and gave them medicines. He was always successful, and he always became the Hakim, the doctor, between the people of Shirdi, by which he was known formally. A curious case may be narrated here. One devotee had his eyes quite red and swollen. No doctor was available in Shirdi at that time. The other devotees took him to Baba. In such cases, other doctor would use ointments, unguents, cow's milk, and camphor drugs, etc. Baba's remedy was quite unique in this case. He pounded some biba, some carpus anacardium, either marking nuts, and made two balls of them and thrust them onto each eye of the patient and wrapped a cloth bandage around them. Next day, the bandage was removed and water was poured over them. The inflammation had subsided and the pupils became white and clear. Though the eyes were very delicate, the biba caused no hurt but removed the disease of the eyes. Many such cases were cured. This is only one of the examples in this regard. Now, we talk about Baba's yogic practices. Baba knew all the processes and practices of yoga. Two of them will be described here. First, Dhauti Kriya or cleansing process. Every third day, Baba went to the well near banyan tree at a considerable distance from the masjid, washed his mouth, and had a bath. On one occasion, he was seen throwing up his intestines, cleaned them inside out, and placed them on the jam tree for drying. There are people in Shirdi who have actually seen this and who have testified to this fact. Ordinary dhauti is donned and done by a moistened piece of cloth linen which is 3 inches broad and 22.5 feet long. The piece is gulped down the throat and allowed to remain in the stomach for half an hour for being reacted there and then taken out. But Baba's dhauti was quite unique and extraordinary. Second, Khanda Yoga, either separating the limbs. In this practice, Baba extracted the limbs from his body and left them separately at different places in the masjid. Once a gentleman went to the masjid and saw the limbs of Baba lying in separate places. He was terrified. He thought of running to the village officers and informing them that Baba is being hacked into pieces and murdered. He thought that perhaps it would be not right to inform, as they can put the responsibility of this murder on him, as he was the first informant and knew something of the affair. So he kept silent. But the next day, when he went to the masjid, he was very much surprised because he saw Baba hale and hearty as before. He thought that what he had seen the previous day was only a dream. Baba practiced yoga since his infancy and nobody knew and guessed the proficiency he had attained in it. He charged no fees for his cures and became renowned and famous by the virtue of his merits, and gave health to many poor and suffering persons. This famous doctor of doctors cared not for his interest, but always worked for the good and welfare of others, himself suffering unbearable and terrible pain many a times in this process. One such instance will be related now, which will show the all pervasive and the most merciful character of Sai Baba. Baba's all pervasiveness and mercy. In the year 1910, Baba was sitting near the dhuni on Diwali and warming himself. He was putting firewood into the dhuni, which was burning brightly. A little later, instead of pushing the logs of wood, Baba pushed his arm into the dhuni. His arm was scorched and burnt. This was noticed by the errand boy Madhav and also Madhav Rao Deshpande Shama. They at once ran to Baba, and Madhav Rao clasped Baba by his waist and behind him dragged him forcefully backward and asked Deva, "Why you have done this?" Then Baba came to his senses and replied, "The wife of a blacksmith at some distant place was working the bellows of a furnace. Her husband called her. Forgetting that her child was on her lap, she got up hastily and the child slipped into the furnace. I immediately thrust my hand into the furnace and saved the child. I do not mind my arm being burnt, but I am glad that the life of the child is saved." Leper Devotees Service. On hearing the news of Baba's hand being burnt from Shama, Madhav Rao Deshpande, Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, accompanied by the famous Dr. Paramanand of Mumbai with his medical outfit consisting of ointments, lints, and bandages, etc., rushed to Shirdi and requested Baba to allow Dr. Paramanand to examine the arm and dress the wound caused by the burn. This was refused. Ever since that, the burnt arm was dressed by Bhaguji Shinde, a leper devotee. His treatment consisted of massaging the burnt arm with ghee and then placing a leaf over it and bandaging it tightly. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar solicited Baba many a times to unfasten the bandage and get the wound examined and dressed and treated by Dr. Paramanand, with the object that it may heal fast. Dr. Paramanand himself made similar request, but Baba postponed it by saying Allah was his doctor and did not allow his arm to be examined. Dr. Paramanand's medicines were not exposed to the air of Shirdi and remained intact, but he had the good fortune of getting Baba's darshan. Bhagoji was allowed to treat the hand daily. After some days, the arm was healed and all were happy. Still, we do not know whether any trace of pain was left or not. Every morning, Bhagoji went through his program of untying the bandage and massaging the arm with ghee and tightly bandaging it again. This went on till Baba's Samadhi, death. Sai Baba, a perfect Siddha that he was, did not really want this treatment, but out of love for his devotees, he allowed this service or upasana of Bhagoji to go uninterrupted all along. Baba, when went for Lendi, Bhagoji held an umbrella over him and accompanied him. Every morning when Baba sat near the post close to the dhuni, Bhagoji was present and he started his service. Bhagoji was a sinner in his past birth. He was suffering from leprosy. His fingers had shrunken. His body was smelling full of pus. Though outwardly he seemed so unfortunate, he was really very lucky and happy, for he was the premier servant of Baba and got the benefit of his company. Master Khapade's plague case. I shall now relate another instance of Baba's wonderful Leela. Mrs. Khapade, the wife of Mr. Dada Sahib Khapade of Amravati, was staying in Shirdi with her young son for some days. One day the son got high fever, which then developed into bubonic plague. The mother was frightened and felt most uneasy. She thought of leaving the place and then leaving for Amravati. She went near Baba in the evening when he was coming near the Vada, which is now the Samadhi Mandir, in his evening rounds, for asking his permission. She informed him in a trembling tone that her dear son was down with plague. Baba spoke kindly and softly to her, saying that the sky is beset with clouds, but they will melt and pass off, and everything will be smooth and clear. So, saying this, he lifted up his kafni to the waist and showed to her all the four fully developed babos, as big as eggs, and added, "See how I have to suffer for my devotees. Their difficulties are mine." Seeing this unique and extraordinary deed, Leela, the people were convinced as to how the saint suffered the pain of the devotees. The hearts of the saint is softer than wax. It is soft inside and out as butter. They love their devotees without any idea of gain and regard them as their true relatives. Going to Pandharpur, I shall now close this chapter after relating a story illustrating how Sai Baba loved his devotees and anticipated their wishes and movements. Mr. Rana Sahib Chandorkar, who was a great devotee of Baba and was a Mamlatdar at Nandurbar in Khandesh, he got an order of transfer to Pandharpur. His devotion to Sai Baba bore fruit as he got the order to go and stay at Pandharpur, which is regarded as the Bhuvenakhunda, heaven on earth. Nana Sahib had to take the charge immediately, so he left from his place and without even writing or informing anybody for Shirdi, he started for Shirdi. He wanted to give a surprise visit at Shirdi, his Pandharpur, and salute his Vithoba Baba and then proceed further to Pandharpur. Nobody knew of Nana Sahib's departure for Shirdi, but Sai Baba knew all about this as his eyes were everywhere, omniscient. As soon as Nana Sahib approached Neemgaon, a few miles from Shirdi, there was a stir in the masjid. Baba was sitting and talking with Mehel Sapatti and Appa Shinde and Kashiram when he at once said, "Let us all of us do some bhajan. The doors of Pandhari are open. Let us sing merrily." Then they began to sing the song in chorus. The bhava of the song was, "I have to go to Pandharpur and I have to go on and stay there, for it is the house of my Lord." Baba sang and devotees followed him. After a short while, Nana Sahib came there with his family, prostrated before Baba, and requested him to accompany them to Pandharpur and stay with them there. The solicitation was not necessary, as the devotees told Nana Sahib that Baba was already in the mood for going to Pandharpur and staying there. Hearing this, Nana Sahib was moved and fell at Baba's feet. Then, after getting Baba's permission, Udi blessings, Nana Sahib left for Pandharpur. There is no end to Baba's stories. Let me now stop here now, reserving some of the stories for the next chapter in the next topics, such as importance of human life, Baba's living on alms, Bejabai's service, and other stories. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all.